What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Ring the Bell and Eagles Show. I'm Johnny Mack. This is Brad DeFrancesco. What's up, Brad? How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. We're just gonna recap. Sorry, we're a little late on this. Just busy week. Didn't really get the chance to kind of uh, get on here post game right away, or even the next day. Everything's going on. We all had things going on at the time, so we couldn't really get on here right away. But we're here now. Gonna quick go over the Eagles' 37-17 victory over the Cincinnati Bengals, and just wow, it kind of the offense looked like the offense we thought we were going to see during the regular season. They boomed out. They were unbelievable. Started off kind of slow again, but not really in a slow fashion that we normally see. Um, that's just because the Cincinnati Bengals had an opening drive of 10 minutes, and that just wipes out the clock tremendously. And the Eagles did score for the first time on the opening drive. It just happened to not be in the first quarter, which kind of stinks. But they still did finally score on that opening drive. Hopefully now going into this week they can carry that over and they can score a touchdown on this opening drive and beat in the first quarter and put some points on the first quarter because they still haven't scored a first quarter touchdown since week 17 of last season against the Arizona Cardinals, and that was a Julio Jones touchdown. It was the last time they scored an a first quarter touchdown. But let's go over what the offense did. I mean, they looked spectacular again this week. Jalen Hurts was 16 for 20 with 236 yards, one touchdown pass, and then he had three rushing touchdowns via the tush push, and one he ran it himself from
Yeah.
about 5, 6, 7 yards out, but he looked great. What did you notice from Jalen Hurts this week?
No turnovers, so that's good. I know we got the ball with 2 minutes left in the first quarter, but because like you said, the Bengals used most of the first quarter. But like you said, they scored on the opening drive, even though it wasn't the first quarter, so that's a plus for us. Um, but I think that they said it in the post game too. I think that we finally found the identity of the team, which is running the ball.
Yeah, they did find the identity, which the run game really wasn't anything special early on in the game. It kind of was just like one of those Derrick Henry type games where you're just giving him the ball and he's not really doing anything. Saquon wasn't really doing much with it. I think before the final drive that they capped off with another Jalen Hurts touchdown. Saquon's only had he was at 16 rushes for 60 yards. He really wasn't running all over them. And then that final drive, it kind of how Derrick Henry has done in the past, where defense just broke down. They couldn't stop him, and he was getting 5, 6, 7, 10 yards pop, and he started to show how he really was. But Jalen Hurts again, I mean, after a bad pass to Kenny Gainwell, he went and at the end of the first half, he went 13 for 13 for 200 yards, three total touchdowns, uh, uh 144.4 passer rating, zero turnover worthy plays, and led five scoring drives in the second half. That's unbelievable stuff out of Jalen Hurts. Um, I don't think was big. Why aren't we throwing the ball over the middle? But recently since the bye week game, it's only 3 games, but passes deemed over across the middle. Jalen Hurts is 12 of 14 for 176 yards and 142.6 passer rating. Jalen Hurts before the bye week, he had 11 turnover-worthy plays, most in the league. Jalen Hurts after the bye week, he has 0 turnover-worthy plays. So he's been spectacular. He's been the guy we thought he was. He was the guy we paid. He's been unbelievable the past 3 weeks since the bye week, and it came over from Brian Baldinger this week that there was Eagles players who were tired of the offense and how it was working, and they spoke up, and obviously what they said, it mattered this week, and it showed that they believed that the offense was stagnant and it was stale and it wasn't a good offense, and they kind of went out and showed out. Some other, noteworthy things going on with the Eagles was Saquon Barkley had 22 carries for 108 yards. He gained about 40 of those yards, on his last drive that he was in the game before they put in the subs again at the end of the game. Jalen Hurd had 10 rushes for 37 yards. They ran for 161 yards, 4.1 carries a pop, and that was it was great. The offense looked great. AJ Brown had 5 catches for 84 yards. They didn't throw the ball a ton. They threw about 20 times. And that's kind of what we expect now from Jalen Hurts, to make him comfortable. And it seems that he's a more comfortable passer when the run game is dominating and they're giving the ball to the running back. Is that what you're kind of seeing with Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, I feel like when he has to throw less, I think it's better, to be honest with you, because he's not the type of quarterback that gets rid of the ball very quickly. It's either he has to throw it deep to AJ or it has to be a run because he doesn't. I don't think he has the arm speed to get it off that quickly, especially if he wants to throw it up the middle.
Yeah, it seems like most quarterbacks, it's not just Jalen. I would say probably 90% of the quarterbacks in the league, you need to have a strong run game for that himself. Look at Jared Goff. I mean, he was a guy who kind of got just shunned out of, the Rams, because they didn't think he was a good enough quarterback. And, he goes to the Lions, his first year there, they're terrible. They had like one win. And then they finally they come alive, with this young talent and they sign these running backs and they are absolutely dominating the run game and it's made him such a tremendous passer. I think, last week they didn't throw the ball that much. He had like 85 yards passing, but he had like three touchdowns too because,
Well,
they were down.
When you have Montgomery and Gibbs, you don't have to do that much.
Yeah, then I think Saquon Barkley is up that level. I think he's better than both of those guys. I think that's what we gotta have to rely on. So give it to Saquon Barkley, let him do what he can do, and then look for AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, down the field, and I think this offense can really shine, and that's how it looked this week. And I think this is what we're going to see going forward. I think you have a matchup against another bad defense, another defense that is horrible in the passing game. I think, and not a great run stop. I think next week against the Jags, I think we're going to see more of the same, where they're just going to let Saquon cook, and then when Jalen Hurts has the ball in his hands, he's going to find AJ Brown and Devontae Smith over the middle of the field,
Hey,
and deep down the field, and they're going to make huge plays like they have. They're the best big play offense in football.
did you say that the players were saying something about not running the ball?
No, they weren't happy with the offense. So I don't know. Brian Baldinger, who's a former, offensive lineman in football, played for the Cowboys. He might have played for another couple other teams. He does a lot of recaps of the game and everything, and he's pretty tight in this around the league. And he came out and said that, somebody asked him, why did the Eagles offense look so different this week? And he said players were tired of how the Eagles offense looked, and they stood up and said something. So I don't know who they said it to, but they said something about the offense, and it completely changed how they approached this week's game, and it looked like a completely different offense. And I don't know if it was they think they should give Saquon Barkley the ball more, or maybe throw more passes over the middle of the field to Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, which we did see more of that this week. I don't know exactly what it was, but obviously whatever they said worked, and I think
It
that
worked.
they can change it. I don't know which player said it. He didn't really. He just said, players got tired of how the offense was. So does that mean they spoke up and said something? Probably, or did they want to show why they're a good offense and they went out and did the execution. I don't know the exact story behind it, but that's what he said. And Brian Baldinger I consider him a pretty reliable source. I mean, he's been around the league a long time. He knows a lot about football. So I'm assuming he knows something that we don't. He's one of those guys who, he did play for the Cowboys. He loves the Eagles. Like, he loves this Eagles. Like, he just loves the way the Eagles offensive line is. He always talks highly about this team. So I think that's somebody, we can rely on, that maybe they did say something. Let's go over to the defensive side of the football, which kind of, and maybe not this week, but in the last 3 weeks, they've kind of completely outshined the entire Eagles offense. Nobody thought, I thought this is going to be a bad defense to start the year. But they were going to get it eventually at some point because they were a young defense, and I thought Vic Fangio was the right guy, and he is the right guy. But let's go over since the bye week, the Eagles have allowed 12 points per game, first in football. They have 14 sacks, first in football. Yards per play, 3.9, first in football. Yards per pass attempt, 5.7, first in football. Yards per game, 214.3, second in football. Sack rate, 13.6%, second in football. Yards per carry, 3.7, sixth in football. Pressure rate, 37.6%, 10th in football. And passer rating against is an 80.1, which is 10th in football. They've been spectacular. It's defensive line. It's the linebackers. It's the defensive backs. It's every single person, and it's, I have a few things here written down, but they have something completely special at defensive back. They have two young rookies in Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper Jean, who we've been begging for years for them to draft cornerbacks and get good cornerbacks on this team, young players. And they finally hit on two very, very good players. Quinyon Mitchell, I'll just go through, week by week. Green Bay, he allowed 4 catches for 60 yards. Against Atlanta, he had 2 catches for 31 yards. Against New Orleans, 2 catches for 23 yards. Against Tampa Bay, had 5 catches for 73 yards. Against Cleveland, 1 catch for 12 yards. New York Giants, 2 catches for 15 yards. Against Cincinnati, 2 catches for 12 yards. And he's given up 0 touchdowns.
He's
Cooper DeJean,
legit, dude.
Cooper, he's been great. Cooper DeJean has been the highest graded corner in coverage since becoming a starter at 80.2%. He's the second highest graded corner in coverage this entire season. He's allowed 2 catches for 13 yards against Cleveland. He's allowed 3 catches for 7 yards against the Giants, and he's allowed 5 catches for 41 yards against Cincinnati Bengals. And he's given up no touchdowns. These guys are future probably all pros, Pro Bowl players. They've been absolutely spectacular. I mean, Quinyon Mitchell looks like, you don't really hear much rookie talk about unless it's this guy right now. He's been spectacular. He's on his way to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. It reminds me a lot of, how, when Sauce Gardner came into the league, it was just some guys just have it, and he completely has it. He has the attitude. He wants to cover the number one guy. I'm not sure why, maybe because he's a rookie, he's not traveling yet, but I'm assuming at some point in his career, he's going to be traveling across the field to cover the best wide receiver wherever he's lined up. And Cooper DeJean, he can cover the best of them. And you saw what he did against, on fourth down against Jamar Chase. It was clear man coverage, and he was going back and forth as he's run that motion. He just made an excellent play. These guys can tackle, and you don't see this much out of cornerbacks, especially Darius Slay, who is a good coverage corner still at the age he is. And I know he's been hurt a lot, and he's in and out of the game and stuff like that. But in coverage, he's been a very good cornerback this season. But he doesn't tackle like these guys tackle. These guys are physical and they tackle, and they're just unbelievable. Have you thought about Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean?
Well, I've been saying the whole season that like this Mitchell's legit, dude. You can tell when he's on the field that he makes stuff happen. He doesn't let anything happen massive. I remember you said during a Giants game, I forget what's his name, the wide receiver.
Malik Neighbors, he's been unbelievable.
Yeah, but Mitchell locked him down. You didn't really see obviously he had
You
Neighbors
didn't hear a single. He didn't. I mean, he had a few catches here and there. I think he had like 40 yards. I mean,
yeah,
but
and
but when he was in coverage, he didn't do anything against. He didn't do a single thing against him.
yeah,
And,
and
and Neighbors
Jamar
has been great, everywhere. And Jamar Chase, the same thing. Jamar Chase, it was almost like the Bengals were purposely lining him up away from
Mitchell. Yeah, he had.
Mitchell.
Chase had a touchdown, but he had nine receptions for 54 yards, and like most of
and
receptions were on Mitchell.
yeah, 3 of them were on Mitchell for 7 yards. I know. No, was it? 2 of them were on Mitchell for 12 yards. But the thing about that is, the touchdown wasn't on Mitchell. That was on,
Yeah.
Nolan Smith was in coverage there, which was, they just, in this system that, Vic Fangio runs, he does drop his edge rushers in coverage, and that just happened. And what do you expect? One of the best wide receivers in football, top 5 wide receiver, maybe the best wide receiver in football. In Jamar Chase, who's pretty much leading football in touchdowns and yards for a wide receiver. He's been spectacular this season. They held him, this defensive, they held him to 54 yards. They didn't let him dominate the game. They didn't give Joe Burrow any help, and especially when they're missing a guy like T. Higgins, and you can shut down a guy like Jamar Chase, who obviously is going to be that guy that game. It's spectacular, and what they've done was amazing. And let's get over to two other guys that I kind of want to highlight real quick, before we wrap it up here. Has Nolan Smith emerged as, the guy we thought we were getting in the first round? Because, last year he didn't play much. He had 1 sack. He may have had like 3 or 4 tackles. He really didn't do anything. But, since week 5, at pass rush win rate, he's 3rd at 25%. At his pass rush grade, he's at an 84, which is 3rd best in football. And he's been credited with 2.5 sacks in the last 3 games. And, he looks like he's kind of figured it out and he's ready to go. And it's something that they needed somebody to step up this position. He's really the only guy who kind of stood out in the pass rush this past week.
Yeah. The past 2 weeks, he did it against the Giants.
Yeah, he did it against the Giants too. But that game was just all around. The whole defensive line was dominating. He was a part of the only Eagles shot the Eagles had. They got a lot of pressure on Burrow, but they really never got him down. He kept escaping. But it was Jalen Carter didn't come on the stat sheet, but he was like the 3rd highest graded Eagles player, like an 89. So he was there doing Jalen Carter things. He just wasn't able to get on the stat sheet this week. But it feels great as somebody, we kind of like, first, at the end of last season, like, oh, why do we waste a pick on this guy?
Yeah,
We really needed an edge rusher, and this guy just isn't it. And now he's kind of coming in here and being the guy. He's kind of being the guy here where, Bryce Huff signed and he's not doing anything. Josh Sweat, he didn't have a good game this week, but he's been very good lately. And, glaring need on this team for a few weeks was that they needed an edge rusher, and I still think they do. And I don't know who they're going to get. I mean, I'm thinking, I don't
Hassan.
think they're going to get. I don't think they're going to get. They can't get Hassan Reddick. That's the one person they can't get because you're not allowed to trade for the same player back in the same calendar year, which they've already. So they can't do that until next year. They wanted to bring him back. I don't think they're getting Garrett. I don't think Cleveland's going to get rid of Garrett. I don't think the Raiders are going to get rid of Max Crosby. I just don't think that those guys are going to get rid of. Even though I think those organizations should get rid of, it's still a need that the Eagles need a guy like that. So I think a guy like Zadarius Smith from Cleveland's got possibilities. An older guy. He's been very successful in this league. He played with Green Bay, played with Minnesota. Played with Ravens. He's had very very good years with those organizations. They're both teams. The Ravens, they know how to draft and develop players well. So, if he's coming from that organization, he knows how to play football. But I don't know what's going to happen, what they're going to do. I really don't. You thought something would have happened now, but it seems like Howie's really trusted and invested in these guys that they're going to do the thing. And they have. This defense has been unbelievable. Scaring you the first couple drives. The first couple drives where the Bengals are just marching down the field and the Eagles and everything, and then all of a sudden, second half comes around, they just shut them down.
Yeah.
It's very special, what we're seeing how Fangio is preparing these guys. Last guy I want to talk about who's had the last 2 weeks has been the guy we wanted to be the guy at linebacker, and that's Nakobe Dean, who last year was beat up with injuries. Rookie year didn't play much, and it came to think like this guy's a bust. He's not, he won the Buckus Award in college, which gives him to the best linebacker in college football. And we're like, this is not the guy who's been in college. And now this last 2 weeks, you were like, wow. He had 9 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, a QB hit, a fumble recovery. He was the second highest graded linebacker in the NFL for week 8 behind Zach Bond. And I'm not really going to talk much about Zach Bond because he's been that guy all year. But, Nakobe Dean has stepped up tremendously. And he's one of the guys that we really needed that position, and we needed some good players at that position. In the last 2 weeks, he has been one of the best linebackers in football. He's still not the greatest linebacker in coverage, but against the run, making plays against in the blitz, all over the field making tackles. He's even on special teams recovering fumbles. He's been everything we've wanted out of a linebacker for a long time, and it's really great to see that we finally have 2 guys in the middle of the field who can play the position after for years we were begging people, begging for it. Same thing with cornerbacks. We're begging for a linebacker to play football. Do you think Nakobe Dean keeps this up?
100%. And like you said before, Zach Bond has been doing his job all season, but we needed Dean to pick up like the other piece of it, and he has been doing that.
Yeah, this week, last 2 weeks, it kind of like you saw why Nakobe Dean won the starting position over Devin White, why Devin White was cut, why, he wasn't active all those weeks. I think this team has a lot of faith in him, and that's something we really need. And I said it last week, we're finally seeing, on this defense, why these Georgia Bulldogs were the best team in college football for 2 straight years, the best defense in college football for 2 straight years, and why they won that back-to-back national championship. It's because how good these guys are defensively, and they have been great the past couple weeks. Jordan Davis really hasn't been in there as much, but that's a lot because they're not running the football, and that's what he's good at. He's good at stopping the run. But Carter's began a ton of pressures. He's getting double, triple team, allowing guys like Nolan Smith, Bryce Huff, Josh Sweat, who if it's Mojo or what's it, Moro or Mojo or Moro.
I don't know.
I don't know how to say his name either, but Milton Williams, Thomas Booker, and all these other guys, Brandon Graham, all these guys being able to get after the quarterback and create pressures, and it's been the Eagles are gaining pressures at a high rate. They're getting sacks at a high rate since the bye, and you're kind of seeing finally everything come together with a group of young guys, that Big Fangio, that I kind of think what kind of really, kind of lost in the, I don't. You don't want to say he lost the job because they kind of was a mutual thing where they like part ways. Why it really didn't work out in Miami. It was like they had a lot of veterans down in Miami, and sometimes veterans have opinions. And when you have a group of young guys who want to learn and want to be successful in this league, they want to get that second contract, they want to get paid, they want to get money. They're going to listen to what Vic Fangio has to say. And I think we're finally seeing that a bunch of young football players ready to make their names known. And I think that's what we're seeing with Vic Fangio, how he's scheming up this defense. And it's going to be interesting to see how the season progresses. And I think this, if everything keeps going this way and this team keeps building off of this defense keeps building off this could be one of the best defenses in football by the end of the season. If I know they haven't played. This is the best offense they've probably played in a couple weeks, but they're also missing T. Higgins. I would really like to see them when they go against the top offense, and I don't
Yeah.
know when that's going to be. It appears it's going to be against the Washington Commanders because I don't think that Cowboys offense is that offense. I don't know who. I don't think it's that. It's not going to be next week against the Jags. That team is horrible. They have a rookie in Brian Thomas Jr. who's been very good, but Lawrence has been very inconsistent. They played better offensive last week. Tank Bigsby, he's been playing very well, but will he continue it? If they're down a lot, will he be getting a lot of carries and gaining a lot of yards? If um, you know, Christian Kirk hasn't been the same wide receiver, Gabe Davis hasn't been the same wide receiver. It just hasn't been the thing you would see with the Jags that people thought the Jags would be this year. Um, So I don't really think that's an offense that's better than the Cincinnati Bengals offense. I don't think the Cowboys offense is an offense better than Cincinnati Bengals. So the real test will be coming in a couple weeks, and it's kind of the thing we might have to go on a week by week basis, see how this defense improves and how they do and how they've been. But since the bye week, they've been spectacular. Um, do you think this defense keeps it up the rest of the year?
100%. I don't think they're gonna let up, dude. Especially coming off the 2 games that they just came off of. I don't think they're gonna let it up.
Yeah, I think the way this the bye week is in a perfect time for a team that was really struggling. It seemed to really help this team out and figure out their identity offensively and defensively. And the teams that they had coming out of the bye week, it kind of was a progression. They had, you had the Browns who aren't a good offense, so your defense could be able to dominate and gain confidence. You had the Giants who are a little better than the Browns, but not a great offense, can dominate, things. And then you come against an offense that has Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, who's considered an elite quarterback and top 5 wide receiver, and you're able to shut them down. Pretty, besides outside of a couple drives, you only allowed 2 touchdowns, and you've only allowed 2 touchdowns in 3 weeks. That's pretty spectacular. I think this is a great opportunity for this team to continue to build week in and week out, and I think it's going to continue to do the rest of the season.
100%.
That's all we got for you tonight. Come back on Sunday for the pregame show. That game is I believe it's a 1 o'clock game. It was supposed to be a night game. It
Yeah, they
got
changed
flexed.
it.
Actually, it got flexed. It was supposed to be a night. Oh, it's at 4:05. So maybe not at the 12 o'clock start. We'll see what time we're gonna do it. But we'll be back Sunday for a pregame show with against the Jags, home game against the Jags. It's Doug Peterson's coming back party. I'm sure we're going to see a different Jags team than we see in an upcoming week, just for the fact that I think Doug Peterson's going to be a motivated coach that he wants to get a win against the team that fired him. It's a revenge game for him. I know he doesn't seem like that type of guy. He really helped Nick transition into becoming the Eagles coach, and he's a positive guy and he was a good guy in that sense. But I still think you want to show up your former team in a revenge game, especially a team that fired you. It's like the same thing we see players. You saw DJ Moore against Carolina a few weeks ago, and he went absolutely off against the team who traded him. Things of that nature. A lot of guys want to, they're petty and stuff like that. So I think Doug Peterson's gonna have a little bit of chip on his shoulder. So he may not see a typical Jags team. I think we're gonna see a more motivated Jags team, but I still think the Eagles are a completely better team. So we'll recap that. We'll preview that on Sunday before game time at some point. It'd probably be around 12, I would assume, but maybe a little bit later, just because
Just work
it is
live.
a 4:05 start. That it was supposed to be a Sunday night game, but the Jags are a piss poor football team. And at the time, when they got flexed, the Eagles really weren't anything that they are right now. So I think that's why they moved that game out of prime time. I don't remember what game they replaced it with, but they are no longer a prime time game. They're at 4:05. So we'll be back Sunday. But thank you for joining us. Make sure you hit the subscribe, like, share, tell everybody about it. We're sponsored by SeatGeek. Use the code ring the bell for $20 off your first ticket purchase. I'm Johnny Mack. This is Brad DiFrancesco, and most importantly, go Birds.
Go Birds.